Chapter 1. The Attic. The blood trail started at the back door. "Okay," Nora said to no one. "Okay, so." She put down the spatula. She'd been making dinner. Now she was following a blood trail up her stairs, past the bathroom, past the linen closet, all the way to the pull-down attic ladder, which was extended. She had not extended the attic ladder. "I've sedated a wolf hybrid that outweighed me by 30 pounds, she told herself, climbing. "I can handle whatever's bleeding in my attic." He was in the back corner, behind the Christmas decoration boxes and the broken elliptical she kept meaning to sell. Sitting upright, which was wrong. People who lost that much blood didn't sit upright with the posture of someone who had opinions about furniture. He was pale, not blood loss pale, design pale. His eyes tracked her through the hatch, dark, almost black, with an amber ring around the iris. He did not blink. "You're in my attic," she said. "Yes." His voice was low and measured, as if they were being introduced at a dinner party, rather than meeting over a pool of blood next to a deflated inflatable Santa. "You're bleeding on my insulation." He glanced down at the floor. A flicker of something crossed his face. Distaste, maybe. Not at the blood, at the insulation. "I apologize for the intrusion. I required a space that was enclosed, private, elevated." "Those are features of an attic, yes." She came closer. Deep laceration on his left side, possibly reaching the ribs. A second wound on his forearm, defensive. And the bleeding was slowing on its own. "I'm going to look at your wound," she said. "I need you to stay calm." That flicker again, his mouth tightened. "I am perfectly calm." That's what all the bitey ones say. "Can I see your side?" He looked at her for a moment. Something in his expression rearranged. Not softening, reassessing. He moved his hand away from his side. She leaned in. The wound was deep. Deeper than anything she'd seen outside an operating theater. And the edges were closing, slowly, visibly. "That's not possible," she said. He didn't answer. "Your wound is closing on its own. While I'm watching." "Yes." She sat back, looked at him properly. His skin was radiating cold. She could feel it without touching. His chest was not moving, at all. "You're not breathing." "I do not need to breathe." "Your skin is cold." "Approximately 15 degrees Celsius, yes." "And your wounds heal themselves." "Given time and adequate sustenance." She exhaled slowly. "Vampire." "Yes." "There's a vampire in my attic." "Temporarily." "Bleeding on my insulation." "As I said, I apologize." Nora sat down on the floor, not gracefully, just sat, the way a person sits when the floor is the only thing that makes sense. "Vampires are real." "Yes." "How long have vampires been real?" "Considerably longer than the attic." "That's not an answer." "Several thousand years. The precise origin is debated." "Several thousand years. Vampires have been real for several thousand years, and I'm finding out because one broke into my attic and bled on my insulation?" "I understand this is a significant adjustment." "A significant adjustment." She pressed her palms flat against the attic floor. The wood was solid, real. Okay. I have questions. I have about 400 questions, but right now you're bleeding, so the questions can wait, because that's how I handle things. I handle the bleeding first, and I have the existential crisis later. That's the order. That seems like a reasonable order. Don't tell me what's reasonable. You're a vampire, in my attic. Nothing about this is reasonable. She stood up. She went downstairs. She got the first aid kit she kept under the bathroom sink, the heavy-duty one with the suture kit she'd never expected to use on anything that could talk back. She brought a towel, not one of the good ones. In the bathroom, she gripped the edge of the sink and stared at her own reflection for 4 seconds. Her reflection stared back. It looked like a woman who was handling things. "Vampires," she said to her reflection. "Sure, fine." She went back up. She came back up the ladder and he hadn't moved. Not a centimeter, not a muscle. He was exactly where she'd left him, in exactly the same position, as if someone had pressed pause. "Okay," she said. "I'm going to clean the area around the wound. The wound itself seems to be handling its own business. I'm going to need to check for debris. Are you going to stay calm?" "I have been calm for 600 years." "Fantastic. Hold this towel." She worked quickly and without conversation, which was how she worked best. He held the towel. He did not flinch when she cleaned the wound site. He did not react when she probed the edges. He sat perfectly still, watching her with those dark ringed eyes, and the only sign that he was in any pain at all was a single muscle working at his jaw. "You're good at this," he said. "I'm a vet tech." A pause. "You are treating me as you would treat an animal." "I am treating you as I would treat a patient who broke into my attic and might bite me. The protocol is the same." "I do not bite." "Noted. Hold still." "I have not moved." "I know, it's actually unsettling. Most of my patients breathe." She finished, sat back. His side was clean, and the wound had closed another millimeter while she worked. She added that to the list of impossible things she was cataloging. "Your heart rate," he said. "What about it?" "It has not changed since you climbed the ladder." He was watching her with something that might have been curiosity, if curiosity could hold 6 centuries of weight. "You are not afraid of me." "I'm not afraid of things that are sitting still and cooperating. I'm afraid of things that are panicking and cornered. You're doing neither." She snapped the first aid kit closed. "Also, you just told me I'm not afraid, which means you can hear my heartbeat, which I'm going to have feelings about later. Right now, who did this to you?" "That is not your concern." "You're in my attic. Everything about you is my concern." Something shifted behind his eyes, a decision being made. "I was attacked by people I trusted. I am being pursued. I required shelter. Your attic was available." Available. The ladder was extended. "I was getting Christmas decorations." "In June?" "I was putting them away. In June. Because I'm an adult who forgot for 6 months." She pointed at the inflatable Santa. "That's Gerald. He watches over the ornaments. Don't touch him." He looked at Gerald. Gerald stared back with painted, cheerful vacancy. "I would not dream of touching Gerald." "Good. How long do you need?" He considered this. "A few days, until I can move without complication." Define complication. "Attracting the attention of the people who are trying to kill me." Nora looked at the ceiling, at the bare bulb, at the water stain she'd been ignoring for 2 years. "Fine," she said. "Rules. 1. My house, my rules. 2. I check your wound every 12 hours. 3. You don't leave this attic without telling me. 4. You don't bleed on anything else." Your terms are acceptable. They're not terms, they're rules. In my experience, there is no difference. In your experience, right, because you're 600 years old, living in my attic, behind Gerald. I assure you, this is not my standard accommodation. What is your standard accommodation? An estate? In the north? Staff of 12? Grounds that take 40 minutes to walk? Well, now you have an attic with exposed insulation and a camping cot. Life comes at you fast. He looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Surprise, maybe. Or something older. "You are remarkably composed." "I work with injured predators for a living. You're just the biggest one." She stood up. "I'll bring you a pillow. The camping cot is in the corner. Do not inflate Gerald." "Why would I inflate Gerald?" "Because you're bored and he has a valve. Don't." She was halfway down the ladder when his voice reached her. "Soren." She stopped. "My name," he said. "Soren Ashcombe." "Nora, don't bleed on the cot." She didn't sleep well. She lay in her bed on the 2nd floor and had the existential crisis she'd postponed. Vampires were real. Vampires had been real for thousands of years. She had cleaned one's wounds, given him a towel that wasn't one of the good ones, and told him not to inflate a decorative Santa. She had told a vampire not to inflate Gerald. "What is my life?" she said to the ceiling. The ceiling did not answer. From above it, very faintly, she heard the creak of a camping cot as something that didn't need to sleep shifted its weight. Her phone buzzed. Ring doorbell alert, motion detected at front door. She opened the app. The footage showed her empty front porch. No one there. Just the porch light and the welcome mat her mother had given her that said, "Please leave." Another buzz. Motion detected. Empty porch again. She looked at the ceiling. "Are you walking past my front windows?" A long pause from above. Then, very measured. "I was assessing the perimeter." "You don't show up on my camera." Another pause, longer this time. "No. My Ring doorbell is going to send me alerts all night. I will confine my movements to the rear of the dwelling." The rear of the dwelling. You sound like a lease agreement. Silence. Then, "I have, in fact, drafted several." She pulled the pillow over her face. Chapter 2. The Patient. 3 days turned into a week. The wound was healing, but not as fast as it should have been, even by the standards of a creature whose wounds healed on their own. Nora checked it every 12 hours, as agreed, and she could see the progress, but it was slow. Labored. Like a car running on fumes. "You need to eat," she said on day 4, crouched in front of him with the first aid kit. He looked at her. "I do not eat." "I know you don't eat food. I mean blood. You need blood." "I am aware of my requirements." "Great. Where do you usually get it?" He did not answer. The silence had a quality to it. Prideful. "Right," she said. "I'll figure it out." She came back that evening with a cooler bag from work. Inside, 3 units of canine blood, designated for transfusions, logged as expired and disposed of. She had worked the system 1,000 times to get extra supplies for rehab animals. This was the first time the recipient had opinions. "This is animal blood." "It's blood." It is not adequate." "It's what I've got. It's clean, it's fresh enough, and it's not going to ask questions. Drink it or keep healing at the speed of a human with a vitamin deficiency. Your call." He took the bag. He looked at it the way a man who had eaten at the finest restaurants in Europe might look at a gas station sandwich. He drank it. "Adequate is generous," he said. "You're welcome." On day 5, she came home from work and found him standing at the covered skylight, pressing his palm flat against the blackout curtain. "What are you doing?" "Assessing the structural integrity of your light-blocking solution." "It's a curtain and duct tape." "Your curtain is sufficient. Your duct tape is applied at irregular intervals. The corner has a gap approximately 2 centimeters wide." "Is 2 centimeters going to kill you?" A focused beam of direct sunlight through a 2-centimeter gap at the correct angle would produce a burn roughly equivalent to. He stopped. Considered. "Yes, potentially." She fixed the gap. She used more duct tape. "Barbaric," he murmured. "Alive," she responded. That evening, she sat on the top step of the ladder with a sandwich and a notebook. "I need to take a medical history." He looked at her from the camping cot. "I beg your pardon?" "History, allergies, pre-existing conditions, prior surgeries. I do this with every patient." "I have no allergies. I have no pre-existing conditions. I have not had surgery." "Have you been wounded before?" "I have been wounded approximately." He paused, not for memory, for counting. 47 times in 600 years. 31 of those in the 1st century. One becomes more careful. "When was the last time you were wounded this badly?" 1794. "What happened in 1794?" I made an error of judgment regarding a colleague's loyalty. He looked at the wall. It appears to be a recurring theme. She wrote it down. He watched her write it down. You are documenting my responses. I document all my patients. I am not a patient. You're sitting on a camping cot in my attic with a wound I'm monitoring and a dietary restriction I'm managing. You are textbook a patient. I am a sovereign. Not up here, you're not. Up here, you're patient Ashcombe, species, vampire, presenting complaint, stab wound, dietary note, requires blood, refuses to be grateful about it. He stared at her. Something shifted in his expression. Not offense, not amusement. Something rarer. Something she suspected he hadn't felt in a very long time. Patient Ashcombe, he repeated. That's what the chart says. There is a chart. There's always a chart. On day 6, she put a bell on his nightstand, the camping cot nightstand, which was actually an overturned storage bin. If you need anything, she said, ring the bell. Don't come downstairs. My neighbor already thinks I'm harboring a man up here. You are harboring a man up here. She means a human man. She thinks I have a boyfriend I'm ashamed of. You are not ashamed of me. I'm harboring a vampire in my attic who's drinking dog blood out of medical bags and sleeping on a camping cot. Shame isn't really the word. He took the bell. He examined it. It was a small brass bell she'd bought at a craft fair, shaped like a cat. This bell is beneath my station. Everything about this situation is beneath your station. Ring it if you need something. He rang it 43 times in the first 24 hours, for water, which he couldn't drink. He just wanted to hold the glass. For a complaint about the insulation, which was, in his assessment, substandard. For an update on the weather, because the attic had no windows besides the skylight, which she'd covered with a blackout curtain and duct tape. The blackout curtain is functional, he said, but the duct tape is barbaric. It's keeping the sun from killing you. Barbaric, I said, not ineffective. For a report that her cat, a one-eyed rescue tabby named Professor, was sitting on his chest. She does that to all my patients. I am not a patient. You're in a cot. I'm checking your vitals. You're drinking blood from a bag. You are definitionally a patient. Professor purred. Soren looked at the cat with an expression of centuries-old resignation. She is very warm. She likes you. I find her acceptable. On day 7, she caught him trying to organize the Christmas decorations. What are you doing? Your storage system is chaotic. The ornaments are mixed with the extension cords. The tree topper is in a bag labeled kitchen stuff. There is no kitchen stuff in the bag. Only the tree topper and a broken flashlight. You're organizing my Christmas boxes. I am improving the infrastructure of my temporary quarters. Your temporary quarters are my attic, which you are now decorating. I am not decorating. I am systemizing. He held up a tangled ball of lights. This strand has been knotted since, by my estimation, 2019. I have untangled it. You untangled my Christmas lights. I had time. I do not sleep. She looked at the attic. The boxes were now stacked by category. The ornaments were sorted by material. Glass separate from plastic, which was separate from homemade by a child, a category he had created and labeled in his precise, archaic handwriting. The extension cords were coiled. Gerald had been moved to a position of prominence. You gave Gerald a better spot. He is watching over the ornaments. He should have a clear line of sight. She stared at him. He stood among the organized Christmas supplies with the posture of a man who had just improved something and expected it to be acknowledged. This is the most vampire thing you've done since you got here, she said. I will take that as a compliment. It wasn't one. On day 8, she discovered the thermostat situation. She woke up at 3 a.m. shivering. Her bedroom was 52 degrees. She got up, checked the hallway thermostat. It had been set to 48. She marched up the attic ladder. Did you change my thermostat? He was sitting on the cot, reading one of the paperback novels she kept in the attic storage. A cozy mystery. He appeared to be on page 200. Your dwelling was overheated. It was 68 degrees. Precisely. 68 is room temperature. For humans. I am a human. This is a human house. The thermostat stays at 68. He looked at her. She looked at him. Professor, curled at the foot of the cot, looked at both of them. 62, he said. A compromise. 65. 63. 65, or I take the bell. He considered this. 65. She went back to bed. At 4 a.m., the house was 61 degrees. She did not go upstairs. She put on a second blanket and added it to the list of things she was going to address in the morning. The list was getting long. Chapter 3. The King. Roland arrived on day 12. Nora opened the door to find a tall, thin vampire in a dark overcoat, standing on her porch in a way that suggested he had been standing there for some time, perfectly still, waiting for her to notice him on her own. Good evening, he said. He had the voice of a man who had seen a great deal and had decided, at some point around the 17th century, to stop being surprised by any of it. I believe you have something of mine. I don't have anything of yours. Approximately 6 feet tall, dark hair, refuses to acknowledge when he's wrong. Currently, I suspect, sitting on a piece of furniture inadequate to his dignity. From upstairs, faintly, the bell. Roland looked at the ceiling. He has a bell. He has a bell. How many times has he rung it today? 11, and it's only 2 o'clock. Yes, Roland said, that's him. She let him in. She did not have a choice. He was, she would learn, a 400-year-old vampire named Roland Ashcombe, same surname, who had been Soren's chief advisor, personal secretary, and, depending on the century, the only person willing to tell him he was wrong. Roland climbed the attic ladder with the ease of someone who had climbed worse. He stood at the top and looked at Soren, sitting on the camping cot, holding a cozy mystery, with a one-eyed cat on his lap and an inflatable Santa deflating slowly in the corner behind him. Roland nodded. Once. I see we've diversified. Roland. Your Majesty. The words landed on Nora like cold water. She looked at Soren, at the camping cot, at the cat-shaped bell, at the man who had spent 12 days drinking dog blood, arguing about thermostats, and ringing a bell shaped like a cat to ask for a glass of water he couldn't drink. Your Majesty? Soren set down the cozy mystery. I was going to tell you. When? When it became relevant. You're a king. When is that not relevant? I am temporarily displaced from my position due to a political restructuring. He was overthrown, Roland said, settling into the corner with the air of a man pulling up a chair at a show he'd been waiting decades to see. 2 weeks ago, his second-in-command, Desmond Winter, staged a coup. It was, I will say, professionally executed. Roland. He's been running the court for 12 days. He's quite competent. He's also wrong. But competently wrong is still wrong. Roland. Nora sat down on the top step of the ladder. A king. I've been managing a king. I put a bell on your nightstand. It is a very effective bell. I gave you dog blood. In your defense, Roland said, you did not know he was a king. In his defense, he probably should have mentioned it. In my defense, I've been looking for him for 12 days and I would have told you immediately. Soren looked at Nora. The managed composure he'd been wearing for 12 days was still there, but she could see the cracks now. Not because he was weak, because she was looking. My court was taken, he said, quietly, no performance. My closest advisor for 2 centuries decided I was wrong about the direction of our kind, and when I refused to change course, he decided to remove me from course. I was wounded. I fled. Your attic was available, yes, you said. She was quiet for a moment. What did he think you were wrong about? I allowed turned vampires into positions of influence. Desmond believes this weakens the pureblood line. He is wrong. But his wrongness is organized, well-funded, and, as of 12 days ago, in charge. Roland was watching them both with the attentive, non-committal expression of someone writing a very detailed internal report. "You're staring," Nora said to him. "I am observing. It is my primary function." He paused. Day 12. The king has been drinking canine blood from veterinary supplies. He has a bell. The mortal has covered his skylight with duct tape. The cat appears to have formed an attachment. Are you narrating? I find documentation soothing. Day 12. Addendum. His Majesty's serif standards remain intact. Later that evening, while Soren was asleep, or whatever passed for it, Roland found Nora in the kitchen. "You should know what you're involved in," he said. "I've been treating a wounded vampire for 12 days. I think I know what I'm involved in." "You've been treating a wounded king. The distinction matters. Desmond's enforcers are searching for him. They have been for 2 weeks. They will not stop." "How many of them?" "Between 8 and 12, rotating in shifts. They are methodical. They are patient. They have been given authority by Desmond to use whatever means necessary." "Whatever means necessary meaning what, exactly?" "Meaning that if they find him here, they will kill him, and they will not leave witnesses." She looked at him. "You're trying to scare me." "I am trying to inform you. I have been trying to find His Majesty for 12 days. I have been frightened for the entirety of those 12 days. I find honesty preferable to performance." "How did you find him?" "Professor." "My cat?" "She was on your roof at 2 in the morning. I recognize the behavioral pattern. Cats tend to stay near vampires. The body temperature is agreeable to them." "My cat led you here?" "Your cat has excellent instincts." He paused. "As, it appears, do you." That night, with Roland in the guest bedroom, Nora climbed the attic ladder. 12 hours, she said. "Shirt up." He complied. The wound was better, closing, finally. But the skin around it was wrong. "You look terrible," she said. "I am 600 years old. I always look like this." "No, you looked better on day 3, and on day 3 you were actively dying. The animal blood isn't enough, is it?" "It sustains." "Sustaining isn't healing. You're not getting better, you're treading water." She sat back, looked at her own wrist, looked at him. He went very still. "No," he said, "it would help." I said no. "Why?" "Because feeding from someone, it is not simply nutrition. It is not what you think it is." "Then tell me what it is." He was quiet for a long time. The amber ring around his iris was brighter than she'd ever seen it. "It is closer to hearing someone," he said, very carefully. "Not their thoughts, their truth. Who they are when they are not performing. For a moment, you would be entirely known." "That's what scares you? That you'd know me?" "It scares me that you would let me." "I've hand-fed a wolf with a broken jaw. I've tube-fed a hawk that tried to take my eye out. You're not going to scare me." "How long is it since you've done this?" "The last person I fed from directly was my wife. In 1847. She let the silence sit. She'd learned that from the clinic. With frightened animals, with difficult moments, the right thing to do was nothing. "I'm offering," she said, "and I'm trusting you to stop. I trust you." "You trust too easily." "I've been managing you for 12 days. I don't trust you easily. I trust you specifically." She held out her wrist. He took it with both hands. His fingers were cold. She could feel the temperature difference, her living warmth against his permanent chill. And for the first time, the contrast wasn't clinical. It was intimate. He brought her wrist to his mouth. She felt his lips, cold, and then a sharp, precise pain. And then warmth. A strange, spreading warmth that had nothing to do with temperature. Like being seen. Like someone opening a door she hadn't known was closed. He released her after exactly 7 seconds. She knew this because she counted. His eyes were fully amber when he looked at her. Not the ring. All of it. "Thank you," he said. The words sounded like it cost him something. "You're welcome." Her voice was steadier than she expected. "How's the wound?" He looked down. The edges had closed another centimeter in the time since she'd offered. "Better," he said. Significantly. She looked at her wrist. 2 small marks, already closing. She'd seen thousands of puncture wounds. These were precise, surgical. The work of someone who had done this before and knew exactly how much was too much. "You counted," she said. 7 seconds. "You were counting too." Professional habit. She wrapped a small bandage around her wrist. Neat, practiced. The same wrap she'd done 1,000 times on patients who couldn't tell her it was too tight. "Does this change anything? The blood? Between us?" Define between us. "You drank my blood. Is that a thing? A vampire thing? Are we bonded now or something?" "No. A bond requires mutual exchange. This was one-directional." "So I'd have to drink your blood." "Yes, which you will not be doing." "I wasn't offering." "Good. Good." They sat in the attic, in the multicolored glow of the Christmas lights that had turned themselves on again, and did not look at each other. Professor, between them, purred loudly enough to fill the silence. "Your heart rate changed," he said. "Shut up." "During. Not before, not after. During." "I said shut up." It was faster. "Soren Ashcombe, if you narrate my heartbeat to me one more time, I will take the bell and the cozy mysteries." He was quiet. But in the dim light of the attic, the amber ring around his iris was brighter than it had been in days. And his hands, still wrapped around the empty mug she'd given him that morning, were holding it the way you hold something when you are trying very hard not to reach for something else. Chapter 4. The Hunt. The month had a rhythm. Mornings, Nora went to work. She treated dogs, cats, the occasional parrot. She came home. She climbed the ladder. She checked Soren's wound, which was healing properly now, closing steadily, a visible line shrinking day by day. She fed Professor. She argued with Soren about the thermostat. She listened to Roland's daily observations, which had evolved into a running chronicle. Day 18. The king has finished all the cozy mysteries and has begun reading them again. He has opinions about the detective's methodology. Her forensic timeline is inconsistent, Soren said from the cot. She identifies the poison at noon, but the lab results she cites would require a minimum of 48 hours. It's fiction, Nora said. Fiction should be internally consistent. Day 19, Roland continued, unbothered. The king has begun fact-checking the cozy mysteries. The mortal appears resigned. Day 21. The mortal purchased a space heater. The king has placed it near the cat. Professor was cold. Professor was fine, Nora said. She was shivering. She was purring. She does that. It's a vibration, not a shiver. I maintain she was cold. Day 23. The king attempted to make the bed. The camping cot does not have a bed to make. He made it anyway. The blanket was folded at precise right angles. The pillow was centered. The cat-shaped bell was positioned at the exact midpoint of the storage bin nightstand. You made a hospital corner on a camping cot, Nora said. Standards do not depend on circumstances. Something had shifted between them since the feeding. She could see through the managed surface now, to the man underneath, who held empty mugs for warmth, and read mysteries twice, and positioned bells with the care of someone arranging a diplomatic table. On day 22, she fell asleep on the attic floor while updating his chart. She woke up with a blanket over her and Professor on her stomach. You covered me, she said. You were losing heat. How long was I asleep? 3 hours. You sat there for 3 hours? I was reading. You've read that book 4 times. The forensic timeline continues to trouble me. She didn't move. She lay there with the scratchy blanket and the cat, and the quiet of a room where only one of them was breathing. Can I ask you something? You have been asking me things for 22 days. I don't see what would change now. The wife you mentioned, the one in 1847? He went still. Not predator still, a different kind. The kind where something old and heavy shifts in a dark room. What about her? What happened? She grew old. I did not. That's it? That is everything. He set the book down. Her name was Anne. She was a surgeon's daughter from Shropshire. We had 31 years. She was aware from the beginning of what I was. She chose to stay. She chose not to be turned. She said... He stopped. The muscle at his jaw worked once, hard. She said she would rather have one life that was entirely hers than an eternity that was borrowed. Borrowed? Her word, for what turning gives you. She believed, and she was not wrong, that immortality was not a gift. It was a reclassification. You stop being what you were. You become something adjacent. Do you think she was right? I think she was braver than I will ever be. She chose mortality. I did not choose immortality. I was born into it. She was quiet for a while. Do you miss her? Every day. But not the way you think. I don't miss the grief. I miss the ordinariness. She used to leave her shoes in the hallway, both of them, in the exact middle, where I would trip on them in the dark. I have not tripped on anything in 178 years. I leave my shoes in the hallway. I have noticed. You could have mentioned that. I did not want to. The silence between them was warm on her side and cold on his. Professor purred. The Christmas lights flickered. Soren, for his part, had developed an unacceptable attachment to her smart thermostat. He'd figured out the app on her tablet and was now adjusting the temperature remotely from the attic. She'd changed the password. He'd guessed it. It was Professor's name. In her defense, she'd said it before harboring a vampire. You cannot keep changing my thermostat. I am not changing it. I am optimizing it. You set it to 54 degrees at 3 a.m. The optimal temperature for rest. For whom? For the household. You don't sleep. Roland, from the guest bedroom doorway, without looking up from a book. Day 24. The thermostat conflict continues. Casualties, 1 blanket, thrown down the stairs. The mortal's accuracy is notable. On day 20, her neighbor Karen knocked on the door while Nora was halfway through her after-work attic checkup. She came downstairs, still holding a roll of medical tape. Hi, Karen. Karen looked at the medical tape, at Nora's hair, which she hadn't brushed because she'd come straight from work to the attic, at the general state of a woman who had been living a double life for 3 weeks. Nora, honey, is everything okay? Everything's fine. Because I've noticed your house has been very cold lately. Your heating bill must be... I'm experimenting with temperature regulation. And there have been some noises at night? From upstairs? From the attic, faintly, unmistakably, the bell. That's my cat, Nora said. Your cat rings a bell? She's very smart. Karen looked unconvinced. Karen was always unconvinced. Karen had been unconvinced since Nora moved in 3 years ago and declined to join the neighborhood book club. If you have a guest, you know you can just say so. No judgment. I don't have a guest. The bell rang again. That is definitely not a cat. It's a cat with a bell. She bats it, for attention. Karen peered past her into the hallway. Nora stepped to block the view. Well, Karen said, if you need anything, the book club is Thursday. Thanks, Karen. She closed the door, climbed the attic ladder. Soren was exactly where she'd left him, holding the bell with the careful grip of someone who had just realized he'd made a tactical error. You rang the bell, she said. I required, while my neighbor was at the door. I was unaware you had a visitor. You can hear heartbeats from 40 feet. You were extremely aware I had a visitor. He set the bell down. I may have misjudged the acoustics. You rang the bell because you were bored and wanted attention. The pause was longer than necessary. I had a legitimate inquiry about the Wi-Fi password. You don't use the Wi-Fi. I was considering it. Roland, from the guest bedroom. Day 20. The king has developed strategic deployment of the bell. The neighbor suspects a boyfriend. This is technically accurate. It is not technically accurate, Soren said. Day 20. Addendum. The king objects to the classification. It happened on day 25. Nora was making pasta again when the air changed. She looked up. Soren? Nothing. The attic above her had gone silent in a way that had weight. She climbed the ladder. He was at the hatch, frozen. Not his usual composed stillness. This was something else. Every line of his body aimed like a weapon. His eyes were fully dark. No amber, no ring, just black. 2 of them, he said, almost inaudible. 3 houses south, moving north. Desmond's hunters? Yes, they will reach this house within the hour. Roland appeared in the hallway, coat already on. I'll draw them east. They know my scent. They'll catch you. They've been trying for 25 days. I'm faster than Desmond gives me credit for. He looked at Nora. If they knock, you've never seen a vampire. You live alone with a cat. And if they don't believe me? They will, Soren said. You are remarkably difficult to read. I'm a vet tech. Half my job is telling people their pet is going to be fine when their pet is not going to be fine. Roland left through the back door. Soren went up to the attic. Nora turned off the stove and waited. The knock came at 7:14 p.m. 2 men. Tall, pale, the same unsettling stillness she'd learned to recognize. Polite smiles with too many teeth. Good evening. We're looking for someone. A man. He may be injured. Nora leaned against the doorframe with the expression she used on 60-pound dogs who thought they didn't need nail trims. Injured how? He would be unusual. Difficult to explain. This is a residential neighborhood. Everyone here is pretty easy to explain. We're from a different part of the city. Uh-huh. Well, I haven't seen anyone unusual. I work at an animal clinic on 5th. If someone showed up bleeding, I'd call 911, not hide them in my house. Professor appeared at her ankles, stared at the vampires, and hissed. Nice cat, one of them said. She doesn't like strangers. They left. She closed the door, locked it, stood in the hallway until her hands stopped shaking. Then she climbed the attic ladder. Soren was standing by the covered skylight. The tension was draining out of him slowly. They're gone, she said. I heard your heartbeat accelerate when you opened the door. I heard it stay steady while you lied to them. I heard it spike after they left. That's how it works. During, you're handling it. After, you feel it. She sat down on the cot. Her hands were still trembling. Fine, barely visible, the kind of shake you only noticed if you were looking. He was looking. He sat beside her. Not close. 2 inches of space between them. The distance between a vet and a patient, which was what they were. You're shaking, he said. I'm fine. You are not fine. I will be fine, in about 5 minutes. This is just adrenaline. He reached for her hand, slowly, the way she had taught him she approached frightened animals, telegraphing the movement, giving her time to pull away. She didn't pull away. His hand was cold. Hers was warm and trembling. He held it the way he held the empty mugs, carefully, like something he'd been given that he didn't quite believe was his. Your hands are freezing, she said. Approximately 15 degrees, yes. You could have warned me. You already knew. Knowing and feeling are different. They sat there, her hand in his, the cold seeping into her fingers and the warmth seeping into his. Professor wedged between them and purred, as if this was perfectly ordinary, as if this was what the attic had always been for. Thank you, he said. For the door. Don't thank me for lying to people who wanted to kill you. That's a baseline. It is not a baseline. It is the most anyone has done for me in a very long time. She looked at their hands, his long, pale fingers around her shorter, warmer ones. A ring on his left hand, old, heavy, a signet she'd noticed on day one and never asked about. What happens now? She said. Roland will lead them east. They'll search for another week. They'll report back to Desmond. And he paused. The wound is nearly closed. Another few days. And then? The silence was the answer. On day 28, the wound closed. She checked it during the morning checkup, the 12-hour ritual that had become the scaffolding of her days, and the skin was smooth. A thin white line where the gash had been. New skin over old damage. It's healed, she said. Yes. She pressed the edges gently, firm, no tenderness, no heat. Closed. Patient Ashcombe, she said, and her voice was steady because she was a professional, and this was a discharge. You are cleared for release. He looked at her. The amber ring was there, faint, steady. He didn't say anything. She went downstairs. He packed that evening. There was not much to pack. He had arrived with nothing and accumulated almost nothing. But he folded the blanket. He centered the pillow. He made the camping cot with hospital corners one final time. Roland watched from the corner. Day 28, the king is packing. I am organizing. The king is organizing. The cot has been made to specifications not seen outside military service. The bell has been returned to the storage bin. Roland, the cozy mystery has been placed face down at page 212. The forensic timeline remains unresolved. Roland, day 28, addendum. The king does not want to leave. The king is leaving anyway. The mortal is downstairs making pasta and pretending she cannot hear this conversation, which she absolutely can. Soren stood very still. That is not documentation. That is editorial. I have been documenting you for 400 years. I have earned an editorial. Has she said anything? She said, and I quote, Patient Ashcombe is cleared for release. She used her professional voice, the one she uses when she is performing competence as an alternative to feeling things. I am familiar with the technique. You invented the technique. Soren picked up the bell. The small brass bell shaped like a cat. He turned it over in his hands. I should speak with her. Yes. And say what? Day 28, editorial continued. His Majesty, who has negotiated treaties, ended wars, and managed a court of 200 vampires for 6 centuries, does not know how to tell a woman he would like to continue sitting in her attic. It is not about the attic. No, Roland said, it isn't. He found her in the kitchen. She was making pasta. She was always making pasta. Nora. Your extraction is tonight? Roland has arranged safe passage. There are loyalists in the Northern District. I can reach them by... Great, that's good. You should be safe. She was not looking at him. She was looking at the pot. The pot was not interesting. She was performing a level of investment in boiling water that did not exist. The wound is healed. I saw. My presence here is no longer necessary. Nope, all clear. He stood in her kitchen. She stirred pasta. The thermostat read 65 degrees. The Ring doorbell was quiet. Professor was sitting on the counter, looking between them with the single-eyed judgment of a creature who could see perfectly well what was happening and was unimpressed by both parties. I wanted to, he began. You should go before dark, she said. The hunters might circle back. Nora. There's leftover pasta in the fridge. Not that you eat. But Roland does, apparently. He's been eating my pasta for 2 weeks. Nora. She stopped stirring. She did not turn around. I would like to say something, he said. and I am aware that I am not skilled at this. I have negotiated the transfer of territories and the dissolution of marriages and the terms of 3 separate wars. I have never had to negotiate the part where I do not want to leave someone's kitchen. You don't have to negotiate. You just have to go. And if I do not want to go? She turned around. Her eyes were bright. Not crying, too stubborn for that. But the brightness was there, and he could hear her heart doing the thing it did when she was trying very hard to be professional about something that was not, in any way, professional. Then why are you packing? Because you cleared me for release. You used the chart voice, the clinical voice, the voice that means this is a medical situation and I am a patient and you are discharging me. You are a patient. That's what you've been. That's what this was. Is that what this was? The pasta was boiling over. Neither of them moved. You covered me with a blanket, she said. You sat there for 3 hours not reading a book you'd read 4 times. You put the space heater near the cat. You rang the bell 43 times because you wanted someone to talk to. You drank dog blood for a week without complaining. Well, you complained, but you drank it. And you... Her voice cracked, just a hairline. You told me about Anne's shoes. Yes. People don't tell other people about the shoes unless it means something. No, they don't. So what does it mean? He crossed the kitchen. 2 steps, the distance between a patient and a person. He reached for her hand the way she'd taught him, slowly, telegraphed, giving her time to pull away. She didn't pull away. It means I have not tripped on anything in 178 years, he said. And your shoes are in the hallway, and I do not want to leave your kitchen. She looked up at him, warm eyes meeting cold. The temperature difference between them, her alive warmth and his permanent chill, was a physical thing, a border they'd been standing on the edge of for 28 days. You're going to have to be more specific, she said. I'm a medical professional. I need clear communication. I would like to stay. In the attic? Wherever you are. That's extremely inconvenient. You know that? You're a king. You have a court. You have political obligations and a coup to resolve and a 400-year-old advisor who documents everything on the backs of takeout menus. Yes. And you want to stay in my house, with the substandard insulation and the duct tape and the camping cot. And the cat, and the bell, and the woman who treated me like a feral animal and was right to. She laughed. It was small and broke in the middle and was the most genuine sound he had heard in 600 years. He kissed her in the kitchen, next to the boiling pasta, with a thermostat at 65 degrees and the Ring doorbell sending alerts to an empty porch and a one-eyed cat watching from the counter. His lips were cold. Her mouth was warm. The contrast was the whole story. 600 years of cold meeting one specific, stubborn warmth that refused to back down. She pulled back first. Your lips are freezing. Approximately 15 degrees. You could have warned me. You already knew. Knowing and feeling are different. The pasta boiled over onto the stove. Neither of them fixed it. Chapter 5. The Door. He left that night, not because she asked him to, because he had to. Roland's loyalists were waiting. The political situation required his presence. I'll be back, he said, standing at her back door. You don't know that. I have survived 600 years, a coup, a month in an attic, and your thermostat. I will be back. If you're not back in a week, I'm adopting another cat and naming it after you. That is a disproportionate threat. It's a promise. I'll name it King Soren the Ungrateful. I have never been ungrateful. I drank dog blood without significant complaint. You complained every time. I complained respectfully. Roland was waiting by the fence. Day 28, final entry. The king is departing. The mortal has threatened him with a cat. All parties appear to be handling the transition with their characteristic grace. Good night, Roland. Good night, Nora. Your pasta was adequate. Adequate? I have been eating your pasta for 2 weeks. It was consistently adequate. That is a compliment. It is not a compliment. In 400 years of vampirism, I have eaten exactly 14 meals. Yours rank third. I don't know if that's an insult or the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me. Both, Roland said, simultaneously. They disappeared into the dark. She closed the door. She fed Professor. She cleaned up the pasta. The house was 65 degrees. It felt too warm. She was fine for 2 days. On the 3rd day, she started talking to the thermostat. 65 is the correct temperature, she told it. The thermostat did not respond. I'm not changing it to 61. That's insane. 61 degrees is not a temperature for living things. Professor jumped onto the counter and sat on the thermostat. That's not helping. On the 3rd night, the Ring doorbell sent her 3 alerts. Motion detected. Empty porch. She watched the footage twice. Software glitch, she said to no one. On the 4th day, Roland left a note on her kitchen counter. Negotiations complete. Shared governance ratified. Your name erased from all records, his only non-negotiable condition. He threatened to resume the war over it. Desmond agreed immediately, which suggests even traitors have limits. He is coming. R. P.S. Day 32. The mortal shoes are in the hallway. I have documented this for posterity. On the 5th evening, she opened the front door, and he was there. Not wounded, not hiding. Standing on her porch in a dark coat, looking like what he was. A man who had spent 5 days handling 600 years of politics so he could come back to a house with a camping cot and a cat. Your doorbell, he said. 14 alerts this week. 12 were perimeter assessments. And the other 2? I missed your shoes. She leaned against the doorframe. He stood on the porch. The welcome mat said, "Please leave." He did not come in. You're just going to stand there? I walked into your house uninvited once, bleeding, without permission, without asking. I would like to do this differently. You want me to ask you in. I want you to choose it, not because I'm bleeding, not because I need shelter, because you want me here. She looked at him, a king, a predator. A man who held empty mugs and read cozy mysteries 4 times and had once rejected a peace treaty over serifs. Get in here, Soren. He crossed the threshold. She reached for his hand, cold, long-fingered, the signet ring pressing against her palm, and held it. The thermostat is at 65, she said. I noticed. It's staying at 65. I make no promises regarding the thermostat. She pulled him toward the kitchen. I made pasta. You always make pasta. It's adequate. He almost smiled, almost. The corner of his mouth moved approximately 1 millimeter, which, for a 600-year-old vampire, was the equivalent of a standing ovation. It was always more than adequate, he said. Later, the attic. 2 mugs, 1 full, 1 empty. The camping cot she'd refused to fold while he was gone. Professor on his lap. Christmas lights making the insulation look almost intentional. How long? She asked. He knew what she meant. How long do you have? He asked. 60 years, if I'm lucky. Then I'm asking for 60 years. That's a long time to argue about thermostats. I have argued about less important things for longer. He looked at the cat-shaped bell on the storage bin. I rejected a peace treaty over calligraphy. I can argue about thermostats for 60 years. She leaned against him. Cold shoulder, warm shoulder. The difference was there, as it always would be. She pressed closer anyway. Gerald stared from the corner. The dehumidifier hummed. Outside, Karen's lights were on. The book club was probably Thursday. 65, she murmured. 65, he agreed. And the thermostat, downstairs, held steady.